My manager tried to set me up and told HR that I was stealing, so I went nuclear and got him fired instead. My accidental revenge that I didn't plan, but I'll be damned if you back me into a corner. A few years ago, I was working at a popular petrol station on a popular freeway. Unfortunately, one afternoon, I'd had a freak accident reaching for my drink bottle. My core was obviously still developing, and I slipped a disc between L5S1. Side note, it was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. My mother dresses me as a grown adult, heavily relying on opioids as if I even so much as cough, my legs would crumble. Many months of physio, etc. I was approved to return for minimal hours. I understand it was a freak accident, and not at one point did I blame it on the company, but it happened at work, which probably saved me years of spinal surgeries. Carrying on. One day back at work during a 4-hour shift, I'd have sore throat that day. Normally, we are allowed to grab a coffee once a shift. I asked the 2IC, Clifford, if it was possible to have a cup of slushy instead to soothe my throat. Clifford responded, yeah, that's cool. Just put it in a coffee cup, which I did, following his guidance. Side note, I was soothed. The next morning at approximately 7 a.m., I awoke to an official email from this company stating I'm being suspended without pay due to a serious breach of conduct. I'm baffled and pretty upset. I'm aware that I'm back on reduced hours, being watched, etc. I reply, and we set up a meeting in person 2 days later. Attending, me, my support person, the 2IC, the store manager, and 2 persons from HR, who I'm SURE, they had to make a gigantic drive for. We sit down in an adjacent building, still baffled. The store manager, hi, so we've called you here today for an offense that we can terminate you immediately. TBH, at this point, I was shitting myself. What have I done? I ask them to elaborate. They begin with a very patronizing question, which was the first red flag. Do you understand the definition of stealing? Me, still baffled. I would like to think so. The store manager begins, Monday, you drank a slushy out of a coffee cup, and that is a breach, and considered stealing. At this point, I was relieved because the 2IC was in the meeting, and I reacted like, oh, this is all a misunderstanding. I asked Clifford before I touched anything. I thought it was same, but double-checked, and got permission. This MF, 2IC, looks me directly in my eyeballs, across the table and says, that never happened. The silence was palpable. My jaw was in my lap. My eyes are darting back and forth, thinking there's no way I'm being set up. 170 scenarios ran through my head. Confusion, shock, anger, then acceptance. My back was fucked. I was trying my best to recover, and now being accused of ripping petrol station off by 0.03 cents worth of slushy, so the managers could get a bonus from getting rid of me. This is my favorite part. Everything melted away. The anger, the unjust, everything. I let out a big sigh, and I started smiling. I looked directly at the store manager, who, unfortunately for him, underestimated my observation skills. A week prior, mind you, there was plenty of other offenses. I saw him purposely knock a packet of Oreos off the shelf following an, oops, I guess I'll have to write that off for my morning tea meeting. At the time, I didn't even think about it. I don't care. You do you. But now, I said, alright. I stared down the store manager, laid out what had happened, and asked him and HR if that would be considered stealing, without breaking eye contact. I witnessed his soul leave his body. I sensed HR do a slow pause and turn. I quickly moved on. I was taking everyone down. Next, the 2IC, who I also had nothing against, but here we are. He was freshly married, 2-year-old, and a baby on the way. He was also fucking another cashier, let's call her Trina, in the bathrooms during work. Again, I minded my own damn business, even though I thought he was a POS. I looked at him, then the manager, then HR, and asked if the 2IC was a reliable source of information, seeing as he's having sex in the bathroom, cheating on his wife, etc. Another one down. By this point, HR needs a defib. Then I threw in that half the staff are smoking weed on their break. While I was at it, I truly only liked 2 people that worked there, from a very busy 24-hour store. I went on for the next 30 minutes about every single breach I had seen in the last week, and let them know I could definitely help them out with more information, etc. The meeting was abruptly ended. 3 days later, I was still offended, but had gathered myself and I thought, FK them, I'm young, I'll move on. HR called me and asked me to come in, and I had absolutely prepared myself to be fired, and I was already mentally checked out, recognizing that there's no way I could go back and play nice with people who threw me under the bus. I sit down. HR are groveling. There's probably some sort of court case I could have followed, but again, I was young and ready to burn the bridge. They offered me a 2IC job. Oh, what happened to Clifford? They tell me that he and Trina have quit because Clifford's wife was trying to pull her through the safety barrier every time she went on shift. Also, they fired 18 people for breaches after going through a lot of footage. This included staff eating expired food, etc. I asked them to give me some time to think about. I walked back over to the main store. There's my manager in tears, packing his stuff up in the office into a cardboard box like some sort of movie scene. I couldn't help myself. I had a spring in my step. I asked him why would he be crying? What's wrong? He told me, through tears, he's going on leave. I quit 3 days later and went to another country on a credit card. Best 2 weeks of my life.